the weirdest thing you've maybe ever seen in a game
in the history of football,
but somehow only the 5th weirdest thing that's happened to Antonio Brown in the past 3 years. Antonio Brown took off his clothes and left the stadium, and he was released. He was released in the middle of a game, basically. Not technically, but Bruce Arians comes out afterwards and says, yeah, look, here, let's listen to Bruce Arians saying after the game, ask about Antonio Brown's status with the team.
He is no longer a Buck. All right, that's the end of the story. Let's talk about the guys that went out there and won the game.
So people are kind of mad about that, and I get it, because Bruce Arians, when Chris Godwin went out with an injury, and they kept Antonio Brown, even though he'd faked his vaccination card, which again, top 5. I mean, Antonio Brown's last 3 years have been incredible. When all that happened, Bruce Arians was like, I don't care what anybody thinks, we're keeping him. And now he's like, shut up and don't ask me questions about Antonio Brown. Ryan Wilson, does Mike Tomlin feel vindicated today?
I don't think he feels vindicated, but I think Bruce Arians is embarrassed more than Tomlin feels vindicated, or John Gruden / Mike Mayock feel better about trading Antonio Brown, or Bill Belichick feels like he dodged a bullet when Antonio Brown got in trouble for the other off-field stuff that he's done. But the litany of things that this guy has done, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that. I mean, it's like a 30 for 30, and it's over, what, a 4-year stretch? And here's the thing. Antonio Brown is a slam dunk Hall of Famer. Also, Antonio Brown is not going to the Hall of Fame. And unlike Terrell Owens, who, whether sports writers want to admit it or not, the voters, they kept him out for some time because they didn't like who he was off the field. And you're not supposed to worry about what guys do off the field. You're supposed to be solely focused on the field. Guess what Antonio Brown did on the field on Sunday? He took his clothes off and quit on his team. So that's reason enough to say, all right, dum-dum, we're not even going to consider you. And I would imagine that Antonio Brown doesn't care. But if Antonio Brown had retired this year, or this had been his last season for whatever, he would be up and possibly be going in at the same time as Ben Roethlisberger 5 years from now, who I would imagine is also done. And that's obviously not going to happen. But in terms of the craziest things Antonio Brown's ever done, going back to when he Facebook Lived Mike Tomlin's post-game speech when they beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, this isn't the worst. I think getting himself run out of town in Oakland and then celebrating on
burning his feet with the cryogenic chamber was probably the worst.
That was idiotic, but the fact that the way he celebrated after he got traded out of Oakland, I think they were in Oakland at the time, wherever they were, the Raiders at the time. That to me was okay. This guy, no one ever tells him no. His talent supersedes everything else, and he keeps. And I put this in our little chat. He was driving around New York City with some rando driver.
I have it on good information that driver is actually a sort of a well-known New York driver who works with a lot of football players. So I think somebody from one of the New York teams, probably the Giants, actually set him up with that. I did some digging.
Well, my first question when he moonwalked out of the building for the last time was, is he going to fly home with the team? And the answer, he got his clothes on and he left, and that's a wrap.
Oh, well, it wasn't quite a wrap, because according to ESPN story, first of all, MetLife Stadium security at first thought
he was a fan.
They thought he was a fan that ran on the field, and then he was like, "Hey, bro, can I get a ride to the airport?" He asked the state trooper, and the state trooper's like, "The guy didn't have a shirt or an ID. How was I supposed to know he was a football player?" So they literally thought he was a fan who ran on the field. And Bruce Arians said, he told Fox Sports that he asked Antonio Brown to go in the game, and Brown refused. And that's what led to all of this chaos. And this is just like unbelievable that this, there was a situation with Vontae Davis retiring at halftime of that one game, which is bonkers. This is that times like 1,000. I absolutely do think this is the craziest thing he's done, because it was in the middle of a game. All the other stuff, it was like he decided he didn't want to be with the Raiders, so he started throwing a tantrum and freezing his feet and got his way out. But this was the middle of a game where he was getting passes thrown to him, where he was being used.
And he still had multiple $300,000 incentives in his contract. He needed 8 catches, a touchdown, and there was a third one. What was the third one? yardage, I guess. He did like 120 yards or something like that. Like he was gonna get it in the last 2 games of the season if he played, and
that would have been $1 million. So not only did he get cut, but he basically set $1 million on fire. I mean, honestly, if you would have asked me 2 days ago what was more likely, Brinson taking his clothes off and leaving this podcast shirtless, or Antonio Brown doing it in the middle of a game, I would have bet all my money on Brinson. That's how just almost unbelievable this entire situation is. And that's considering the fact that Antonio Brown does nutso stuff all the time. Even
do we know why he did this?
Why he what?
Bruce Arians said he told Antonio Brown to go back into the game. Antonio Brown said no. And then I think Jay Glazer reported that Bruce Arians was like, all right, then get out of here.
Yeah.
And so Antonio Brown, you can see video from the stands where fans were filming it. Mike Evans and was it OJ Howard tried to calm him down, and he threw down his pads, and then he just started ripping off his clothes, and he throws his undershirt into the stands, and then he runs through the end zone, like doing the dance and giving a peace sign. It's just a wild scene.
But again, that doesn't explain why he did it. Like who doesn't want to go back in the game?
Yeah, like AB. I mean, Bruce is BA is trying to get AB his bonus.
Well, apparently he only returned to the team, I guess, so he could drop this rap video, man, so everybody would watch it. Because I bet that thing
released a rap single. What the
hell? I get that, but that's the cherry on top of the Antonio Brown Sunday here, is that he literally leaves the stadium in a taxi, gets home, drops an Instagram of this new rap song that he has just released. So apparently he thinks his burgeoning rap career is better than anything he's gonna be able to do on the field. So yeah, if you want to get if you want to understand the whole shebang, maybe we need to listen to his song and break down.
It's 1 minute and 54 seconds. There's nothing in there.
Do we need to break down the lyrics?
No, we don't. Tom Brady, by the way, came out and said after the game that he wanted people to be compassionate towards Antonio Brown, and that he wasn't sure he didn't realize any of this was happening until after the game, which kind of, it's easy for us to sit here. You're not on the NFL sideline. Like when you're on an NFL sideline or any football sideline, it's chaos, man. Like so much stuff is happening. I mean, you would think that Tom Brady would definitely realize that Antonio Brown took his shirt off and moonwalked his way out of the stadium, as Wilson likes to point out. He had no idea until after the game, which is kind of crazy. Or he's lying, either one of the two. But he did urge everybody to be compassionate towards AB. Brady has such a weird relationship with Antonio Brown. It's always been very, very bizarre.
Hey, look, we've talked about this before. Antonio Brown very well may have mental health issues, and that's nothing to laugh about. And there was actually CBS Sports, the CBS Today show, the NFL Today did a segment on AJ Brown and his battles with depression, which I didn't even know about. And those are important things we need to talk about. But there's also something to be said for continuing to put people in situations where they're stressed out and do things like this. And it's happened time and time and time again. And this does not reflect well on Bruce Arians, who presumably knows all the issues that Antonio Brown is confronting. I think it does reflect relatively well on Tom Brady in some fashion, that he took him into his home. He's tried to sort of not father him. They're 10 years apart or whatever, but to be a guiding voice for him, or whatever you want to call it. But as far as I'm concerned, Bruce Arians in the front office, this is basically pointing a flamethrower in your face and being surprised when it burns your face off, because it was only a matter of time that this was going to happen. And I've talked to people that play with Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh. My first question was, do you think this is like CTE? And I'm not being funny. I'm legitimately asking.
Yeah, sure.
He's taking a ton of hits. And, Breech's guy, was that Vontaze Burfict that knocked his block off in that playoff game, Breech? That was, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he
has not been the same since that playoff game.
Maybe not. But I asked this question, and the response I got was, Antonio Brown is basically a dumbass. And that's, it had less to do with, in their mind, the potential head injury stuff. And, this person's not a doctor. What do they know? But they played with him, and they've been around him. And, the Facebook Live thing, that doesn't seem to make that's not something a rational person would do, knowing Mike Tomlin. All the issues with the Raiders, that's, clearly out of character of what we would call normal. So I don't know what his issues are between his ears, but clearly something's going on. And the way he left the field on Sunday is troubling. I think Tom Brady's right, but Bruce Arians admitted that we needed Antonio Brown because we don't have any wide receivers, and now they're down another wide receiver. And we always say don't bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. He's going to have to be pretty magical to make something happen, I feel like, in January.
Well, he was magical on Sunday, and it kind of got overshadowed.
Beat the Jets, Breech.
See, when 93 yards with no timeouts, and
very casually,
after Robert
very
Saleh,
casually, too.
after Robert Saleh decided to go for it on 4th down and called a QB sneak. My God, the whole game was.
Breech, let me ask you this: can you name without looking? And if you already know, don't answer. Who caught the winning touchdown?
I know his last name.
do you know his first name?
Cyril? Is it Cyril?
Yes, it is. Cyril Grayson.
But even better is the 2-point conversion.
They rubbed it in so the Jets couldn't
It's
get it.
Le'Veon Bell. So he's a former Jets player and Antonio Brown's old teammate. Who, by the way, he's talking about it afterwards. Was like, he said that, Antonio Brown's really, he's a really good dude. I've texted with him already. He's just going through some stuff or something like that. But yeah, I mean, Tom Brady, Gronk was his leading receiver, 7 catches, 115 yards. And then Grayson had Cyril Grayson, 6 catches, 81 yards in the touchdown. Tyler Johnson, Mike Evans caught a score early in the game, but they did want to limit his snaps.
And Brady 7 of 9 for 93 yards on that final drive, including the game-winning 33-yard touchdown pass.
So you guys are not yet willing to doubt Tom Brady's magnificence in playoff football.
Well, I wait to see who he's playing in the playoffs before I doubt anything.
Okay.
I think that the attrition that has hit their wide receiver core makes me downgrade the Buccaneers pretty severely.
I mean, Gronk's still out there. Mike Evans was out there.
Yeah, look, they're still, but I mean, it's a big difference between Gronk and Mike Evans versus Gronk, Evans, Godwin. And Antonio Brown. Like when you're deploying those guys fully healthy, it was really tough to stop. So it's at least concerning.
They had 8 different players who caught a pass of 15 or more yards.
Pretty good. Braxton Berrios smashing this game. You got to feel bad for the Jets. I mean, Tom Brady, this franchise has been just destroyed by Tom Brady for 20 years, and it just gets one more in out.
And by the way, someone mentioned in the comments, and I mentioned this earlier on HQ. Vontae Davis retired in the middle of that game a couple years ago, and people at the time were confused. But you felt like after he spoke, like, oh, okay, I get it. The guy just didn't want to play football anymore, and the way he went about it was
weird,
strange.
Yeah.
But Antonio Brown feels like it's a whole different conversation.
He ran out. I mean, like, I can't remember what the first tweet I saw was, but somebody said Antonio Brown just took his clothes off and left the stadium. It was like
Scott Hansen on
the pedophile hunter.
Okay. Scott Hansen on the Red Zone seemed confused too. Usually he's never at a loss for words to explain what's going on, and he struggled to explain, and he kept saying Antonio Brown's topless, which I found at the time funny, but we may come to learn that this is not funny at all, but just incredibly weird. And I would just urge teams in the future looking to sign Antonio Brown, make sure you understand what you're getting into. And if Antonio Brown needs help, get him help. Don't just throw him out there and expect him not to do the things that we know he's going to do.
He has burned every team he's